Hi there, my name is Sydney Belladonna and I'm a comic artist. Comics are one of the easiest and cheapest methods for an artist to tell their story, and I'm here today to help you understand 3 core basics of the medium. So if you're interested in making your own, or just learning how comics work in general, this is the place for you. I do plan to cover more complex concepts of making comics when it comes to writing, shot direction, combat scenes, and so on. So if that sounds interesting to you, and you like this video, maybe subscribe, and hit the like button. Look at me doing YouTuber-y stuff. Anyways, let's get right into talking about comics. As you see before you, this is a simple 3-panel comic, but everything you need to know about comics can be found right here. I literally mean everything. So we're going to go step by step and build up the comic with know-how so you can apply these lessons to your own work. Let's begin with the concept of time. Reading comics kinda comes as second nature. Each of these boxes represent a moment in a sequence of actions. The guy is waiting, the guy's friend shows up, they leave, pretty simple. But there's actually a really complex situation that's going on right here. See, the way to think of a panel is like you're watching a show. Every time a new dialogue pops up or something interesting happens, you pause the show. That pause then becomes the panel. The dialogue, the expressions, the background, the shot composition, all of it becomes locked into this one picture. But in order to advance to the next scene, or next piece of dialogue, you have to unpause the show. Then once you get there, you pause again. That time spent in between pauses is what's happening here. This is known as the gutter. Really, it's just where one panel ends and another begins. It doesn't have to be separated, but this is time moving forward. Your brain is filling in those moments of the show unpaused before it moves to take in the next snapshot. When you're working with comics, you're actually working with time. It takes time for our friend Tim here's friend to arrive. It takes time for them to talk, and it takes time for them to walk past the sign, and so on. You're already filling in those moments in time. Not only that, but a panel's direct size can play a part in time. You may have noticed the first panel is a lot longer than the other two. This makes that scene feel a bit more heavy. You're looking at it longer. You have to put more work into looking past it, and in comparison, the next 2 panels feel a lot faster and snappier, because they're shorter. Panel length and size changes the amount of time that sequence is exposed. The larger the panel, the more time it takes up. The smaller the panel, the less time it takes up. The next principle is readability. I think everyone hopes that their comic will be read by either friends, family, strangers, or fans, but in order to do that, you need to make your comic readable. English and other Romance languages read from left to right, up to down. Comics move in a similar fashion. Your eye is going to naturally move from left to right, and your job as a comic artist is to make that movement as comfortable as possible for the reader. In our example comic, if you follow the red arrow, you'll see the intended eye movement, starting at the sign point to the left, and then the guy at the right. Then you move to the next panel, where you begin at the top text, which is Tim's friend arriving late, then you move down to the speaking part of the bubble to see him and Tim looking at each other, then down to Tim's dialogue bubble. Then, in the next panel, you start back up at the top, see them having passed the sign, and then the final dialogue bubble. This pattern makes the comic easy to pick up and read, and it isn't a mess of ideas and bubbles strewn about everywhere, with lines trying their best to pick up the pieces. Structuring your panels to make your story as legible as possible will keep readers invested. The harder it is to read, the more likely it will be that they'll put down your work. Even with dialogue bubbles, you'll notice the person who speaks first is represented at the top, where the eye is most likely to end up in the sequence. But if we flip this, sure, the conversation is still the same, but you're more likely to read, "Yeah, I'm hungry," first, then, "You ready to go?" which puts the conversation out of order. And lastly, our final topic, narrative. Whether you're telling a joke, reenacting a battle, or having an intense emotional moment, there are things you have to do as a creator to get your narrative across. You know the words: who, what, where, when, and why. With comics, it's no different. However, you're reliant on the artistic medium to do a lot of the talking for you. You have probably heard of show, don't tell. It's important when making comics to consider each step of the narrative and how you tell it, though I feel like I don't really need to say that. But within our example comic, you'll notice there is a narrative at play. This was written using a 3-act structure. We have our setup with the waiting panel, a confrontation with the 2 characters meeting, and a resolution where they're off to go get food. The story, even without them sitting down at a restaurant and picking out what they want to eat and all these extra side details, doesn't matter. It's a complete narrative. If I got rid of the story, besides not knowing what to do, I wouldn't have an idea of what the characters should be doing or saying to each other. If I got rid of the dialogue and visual cues of the events taking place, this would feel like a mess. Comics are sequential. You need some kind of binding agent to keep everything flowing nicely. Even if you're just doing a single panel or a whole novel, remembering to flow from one scene to another while giving the audience enough time to understand mixes both time and readability to create a fun narrative. I'd like to take a moment and use a few pages of my new comic to help and demonstrate different ways you can utilize time, readability, and narrative. I will take this moment to kind of give you like a content-ish warning. I like to think of myself as a horror artist, so my imagery is a little spooky. So just be warned. We good? Alright, we good. We're going to flow through the first 6 pages of my newest comic project, Paladin, and go over how I use all of the 3 basics in my work. Our first page is an establishing shot. We're looking through a window into a room with a fireplace and someone sitting in a chair surrounded by bottles. You'll notice this page is a single panel, which demonstrates that this person is sitting here for a long time. And with context clues, we also know that he's been here for a long time. The second page has us in the room with the character and looking at them from behind. They're fixated on a portrait of a woman, and within some quick descending panels, they fall asleep. The next page has our monster appear behind the character. Once again, the panel takes up a lot of the page to portray how long it is just standing there doing nothing. It then reaches out and touches our character, to which we get 2 quick panels of them reacting, shooting up in fear, and turning to see the creature. You may also know that in this page, the character never leaves the left side of the page, but they are turning around through perspective of the panels. The entity is also on the right side of the page. It makes it easier to follow the motion and position of each of the characters. We have the entity trying to speak as it continues to reach out at our character as they look on in horror before they get grabbed. To accentuate the grabbing action, I place the character to the right with a lot of space behind them, so when they're snapped to the left side, it feels more forceful. And finally, my favorite page so far, and the last one, we have our character being slammed to the floor, with 4 jagged panels built around a full page panel. The action of them getting slammed brings you down, and now the page has you move like this with your eyes. Where as you go from panel to panel, you have to cross over the entity's face at every step, which helps in the narrative make this scene of the entity attacking that much more inescapable. This is all our character being attacked can see while they're suffering. Pretty metal, pretty heavy, but hopefully you can see how I'm utilizing time, readability, and the narrative collectively to have you maybe possibly interested in my work. Here, as an extra, I'll give you a little bit of a detox and I'll use another comic I was working on, but ultimately shelved, to demonstrate these concepts a bit more. Here we have a character walking to the right very quickly, because of the quick panel. They pass the door and go out a window, where they then jump to a nearby metal railing. You'll notice this inlay panel is a small, quick panel inside the larger, more time-consuming panel. This works similarly to how the panels worked when the entity was attacking in the previous work. We get some establishing shots as our character runs across the rooftops. Even the direction that she's running carries your eye until you get to the sign. The next page is a bit of a controlled mess. You have the door open with the bell dinging that carries into the next panel with the shop clerk. Then you move up, then back down, and through all the speech bubbles. These are also a lot of inlay panels, meaning this entire action is happening very quickly. I hope what we covered has given you some insight and things to think about your own work, and maybe gives you a newfound appreciation for good comics. My series, the scarier one, Paladin, is actually still in progress, and I live stream my process here on YouTube. And while I'm live and working on my comic, I am absolutely willing at any time to answer any questions you may have. Some questions, though, that I've been asked are a little too open-ended, so keep in mind I'm still one cat just trying to help the best I can. But do feel free to stop by anytime, and I'll be working on more general writing tips, art tips, and otherwise to help you make your comic become a reality. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you again real soon.